Alabama football has been the standard for almost 2 decades. So why are so many people doubting the Tide now?
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson with the AHSA Radio Network. That's me. And Jimmy Stein with Bama Online. That's him. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. I can't wait to tell you about Gametime. Thank you, everydayers, for making this your first listen. Thank you, newbies, for joining us just now. And, of course, we just love having you here. You know, Jimmy, last night you partaked in a SEC preview that'll be broadcast all over the Locked On Network. And it's awesome. And we got nothing but great hosts, and we appreciate them. And they're fantastic people.
Oh, it's good. Everybody should listen to it. It is good.
It's going to be good. I promise you, go listen to it. The one thing, though, afterwards, I didn't get to do it. You did. And the one things afterwards we talked about, you said you couldn't believe how much everybody was doubting Bama. And then, of course, I look around the national scene. And I looked on CBS Sports this morning. They were talking about, teams set to underachieve or something, and Alabama was one of them. Paul Feinbaum said, I think Alabama's slightly overrated at number 5. I get it in a sense. I get some doubt in the sense that Nick Saban's gone and the schedule's tougher, and there's a lot of unknowns. Isaiah Bond has gone to Texas and yada, yada, yada. But it's not like this team is devoid of talent. I'm really beginning to get a little irritated, and I'm hoping that the team puts a chip on their shoulder because the doubting has become aggravating.
It's loud. And it's loud. And I'm surprised at the extent of it. Like Luke said, I get it. It's because Nick Saban is gone and Kalen DeBoer is here. I get that. But I also think it's ignoring the state of Alabama's roster, which some that are removed from the program think was devastated by the coaching change and that everyone left in the transfer portal after Saban's retirement. And as we all know, that's just a gross exaggeration. It's not really true. I think Alabama's starting 22 is very good. I'm not here to over-exaggerate, tell anyone that this is vintage Alabama or that this lineup is better than any of the Saban lineups. That's not true at all. I just think it's another really good Alabama team. And what I wish everyone would focus on, particularly in the Alabama group, the Alabama family, is look what this team did last year. The SEC champions, defeating Georgia, making the playoff, pushing the national champion all the way to overtime, losing by one play to the national champions. Had they made that play and played for the national championship, I believe they would have won. So you look at what happened last year and then look at this year's team. This year's team might be better than last year's team. I'm not saying it will be. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying count on it, go cash the check. I'm saying that this year's team might be better than last year's team because it starts with the fact that Jalen Milroe is no longer an inexperienced quarterback. He now is an experienced quarterback with an offense that's being built around him. And I'm not sure he had that last year. And if you think about what Milroe accomplished last year with a coaching staff that frankly didn't really believe in him, which is another rant that I have, but that's just a fact to me, is that Alabama left last spring practice with Tommy Rees not believing in Jalen Milroe. That's why he went and got his quarterback from Notre Dame to show up. And then Milroe was benched in the Texas game. Go back and rewatch the Texas game. Yes, Milroe made some bad plays in that game. So did most of the team. But for whatever reason, Tommy Rees and the staff, wanted a quarterback change. That set Milroe back. Then he comes back and is the starting quarterback again. And it felt like to me, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but it felt like to me it still took 2 or 3 weeks for Alabama to fully commit to building an offense around Jalen and what Jalen does and what he does best and minimize what he doesn't do best. I just think they did a fairly poor job with it, and he still won the SEC, beat Carson Beck, took his team to the playoff, finished 6th in the Heisman voting. Okay, now fast forward ahead 1 year. Now he's going to have an offense with offensive gurus where it's actually built around him, and he's not an inexperienced player. If Milroe is tremendously improved or even improved at all, That should be scary for the rest of college football. Yet Alabama seems to be like, do they really belong in the top 10? Maybe we're overrating them at 5. This is a team that could take a real step back.
Jimmy, let me just,
it's crazy.
Let me chime in here. First of all, it's funny. What the CBS article I was referring to is actually called 5 early front runners that could finish the season unranked. And they have Texas and Alabama in there. I thought Texas, okay, I kind of get it because of the recent injuries maybe, but their schedule is so much easier. But Alabama, they say the ingredients for a championship are here, but so are the ingredients for a collapse. A collapse. Look, listen.
Alabama hasn't collapsed since 2000.
I mean, it's, again, now, boy, if you want to have your doubts about Kalen DeBoer, fine. I mean, he's never coached in the SEC. Fine. If you still are not a complete Jalen Milroe believer, understood. I think that you're misguided because he did lead Alabama to a victory over the vaunted Georgia Bulldogs, and did lead Alabama into the college football playoffs. But just look at the big picture here. Step back from your Bama hate for a second, and I'll step back from my crimson glasses and say, okay, where is the improvement and where's the fall off? So you have improvement. I think the offensive line improves, and let me tell you why. I think Tyler Booker being a year older and better, Caden Proctor coming back being a year older and better, and Alabama clearly, there is no debate, upgraded at center. Okay, and we've also seen highlights of snaps making it to Jalen Milroe where he wants the ball. That is a upgrade, there's no doubt. If you want to say wide receiver took a step back, I would give you some pushback because maybe I'm misguided in that I have too much faith in a guy like Ryan Williams or Kobe Prentice is taking a step up. I think Kobe Prentice can at least beat Jermaine Burton, who I just watched live myself play for Cincinnati and do well for the Bengals this past weekend. I think Kobe Prentice is at least that good. Defensive line, it's not spectacular. It's incredibly deep. Linebackers, I challenge anybody to find 2 inside linebackers better than Alabama's. Defensive backfield, if you want to say Alabama definitely took a step back, they lose Caleb Downs, Kool-Aid, Terrion Arnold, I can't debate you. The only thing I will say is that's true. I think they replaced them with very capable folks. And I got to go back over to the offensive side for a second and say running back, I think Alabama improved. Now, maybe I'm banking on some unknown, but I think that's how people get rich is they take risks. And I'm taking a risk saying that this backfield of Justice and Jam and Richard Young and the 2 freshmen is more explosive and better overall than a backfield led by Roydell Williams and Jason McClellan. No shot at all at Jason Roydell. They were very good running backs. I wish them well and in Atlanta and at Florida State, respectively. But I think Alabama has got a lot going for it. And I think also you're discounting the new vibe. Alabama probably needed a shot in the arm of enthusiasm. Look, I'm not saying Saban's way was wrong because it's the best way anybody's ever done it. And it would have been successful again this year. There's no doubt. However, I think that the fan base is also enjoying the rejuvenation of excitement. Again, as one of my friends put it, I'll call him Chris T. Wait a minute. That's too obvious. Let's go see Taylor. He said instead of joyless murder ball, it is now joyful murder ball. And I think, or even joyful manslaughter ball. I'll take that. And I feel like, yes, the schedule's a little bit tougher, but I'm telling you what, these people, Jimmy, and we're going to carry this into the next segment because we have to, because I'm running out of time.
I can talk about it all week because I get all upset about it. Because to me, it's just so defies common sense that there's going to be some sort of dramatic fall off. Now, if you want to say Alabama won't make the playoff because they'll finish 9-3, I'm not going to call you foolish for believing that. That's at least within reason, but that's not really what I'm addressing. I'm addressing is the idea.
Don't address,
like you said.
Don't address it because I want to tell everybody about Gametime.
Sure.
I was talking to one of the salesmen for the Locked On family yesterday, and I said, I really enjoyed it. The other day, somebody actually tweeted us and said, hey, I bought something off eBay Motors because I listened to you guys. And he was like, that's great. And I said, as far as Game Time goes, I don't even look at the live reads anymore. Sometimes you can see me reading the live reads. I get it. Game Time, I don't. I just tell you, I speak straight from my heart that I love Game Time so much because I've used them so often. I just bought my Wisconsin, Alabama tickets on Game Time. I have them now, and I paid a great price, and I got to see where I'm going to be sitting, and I love Game Time that much. And if you haven't used Game Time before, first of all, what's wrong with you? Secondly, I got a positive. This is what I'm going to fix what's wrong with you. You can use code Locked On College and get $20 off that first order with Game Time. The app is so easy to use. A Jimmy can use it. A Luke can use it. So go to Game Time, download this app. You will love it. I've used it for the World Series. I've used it for NBA, NFL, college basketball, college baseball, college football, obviously. I've used it for everything. So go check out Game Time. You will love it. And then you will thank me in my Twitter feed. We know that we're your first listen, but Locked On College Football should be your second listen. And I bet you that preview show that Jimmy just did will be on Locked On College Football. Just like it'll be on the Locked On Bama channel.
I believe it'll be out next week, and it's really good. Y'all will enjoy it.
But Locked On College Football, Spence, my main man over there, does an amazing job. Go check them out. If you just want to catch up with everything going on in the world of college football, which I know you do, because here it is. It's right here where it's upon us. So anyway, go check out Locked On College Football. Make them your second listen because it's part of Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. All right, so Jimmy, I want to keep talking about this because the more I talk about it, the more irritated I get. I'm looking back at this CBS thing going, teams that can finish outside the top 25. I don't think they really mean it. And I think that they're just struggling for content right now. But they do bring up the schedule on multiple occasions. They're like, the game at Wisconsin, the game versus Georgia, Tennessee, Missouri, LSU, Oklahoma, and even a tricky finale against Auburn. Yeah, that's all true. But how many of those teams that you just mentioned are more talented than this Alabama squad? And my answer is going to be, okay, if you want to say Georgia, I cannot deny it. Now, why do people just brush off the fact that Kirby Smart is 1-5 against Alabama? Why do people brush off that fact?
Probably Nick Saban. They say he's 1-5 against Nick Saban. And that's what they'll say. And well, that is true. But, hey, I think if you ask a Georgia fan right now, are they eager to take on Alabama in Tuscaloosa? I think the Georgia fans that have been around for all those losses would tell you they're not as eager about that game as some might believe. And they might even be favored to win by a couple points. I'm not even pointing to the Georgia game as what I'm upset about. I get that Alabama's behind Georgia. I even get that Alabama's behind Texas. Last time we played Texas, we lost the game. I get being behind those teams in these preseason polls. I'm not talking about the disrespect that Alabama's fifth. I think that's perfectly fine where Alabama is in the preseason poll. What I'm more upset about it is the deeper doubts that I've seen, the criticisms, even from Alabama fans about the last 3 seasons, to me are just over the top. Alabama's been an elite team even since the last national championship. Over the last 3 seasons, Alabama's won the SEC twice. They're 36-6, and 2 of those 6 losses were to the eventual national champions. The only schools that have won national championships since Alabama are Georgia and Michigan. Alabama is 2-2 in 4 games against those 2 over that period. And 1 loss, Alabama led Georgia in the 4th quarter, and the other loss was to Michigan in overtime. Alabama's been an elite program, even in the last 3 years since they've won a national championship. And this team this year looks to me, and I mean this as a huge compliment, I think this is a typical Alabama team over the past few years. Typical. They'll be explosive offensively. They'll have a good run game. The offensive line is really good. The quarterback is one of the best playmakers in college football. There's an emerging star in Ryan Williams. Y'all can just not believe me until y'all see it and believe me. Defensively, I agree. There's questions, particularly in the back end. But those who say, and I would agree, this team doesn't have those Saban elite freak defenders. Okay. I'll agree with that to an extent, although I do think a couple of them are highly Saban worthy, like the inside linebackers, for instance. But who's better? Find the defenses that will start 11 defenders more highly recruited, more NFL suited than Alabama. Sure, Georgia, okay. Maybe even Texas. Maybe Ohio State with their 2 defensive end. They got 2 first-rounders on the defensive line and 3 first-rounders in the secondary. So, okay, Ohio State. The list of teams that are clearly better than Alabama is either non-existent or short. And I just think there's just too much doubting about Alabama. But the good news is, Luke, we are now, as we record this, about 17 days away from starting to settle it on the field, which is the fun part.
Again, I'm looking at the preseason all SEC teams, and you say, okay, Carson Beck is, preseason all SEC, preseason all American, and a lot of people believe he'll be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. Very fair. Ironically, he was committed to Alabama at one time, was he not?
He was. He was actually.
But let's also be honest. Jalen Milroe beat him last year.
Sure did.
With what we believe to be a lesser offensive staff. And I'm not saying offensive talent-wise, it may have been about where we are. I think we upgraded a little bit. I think we dropped back a little bit on defense. But I would say that I think the offensive staff now is better for somebody like a Jalen.
And Milroe won the game. And by that, I don't even mean that Milroe was on the winning team.
Yeah.
Go back and watch the 4th quarter of that game. Jalen Milroe won the game.
Agreed.
Over Carson Beck.
Agreed.
Playing against a defense as good or better than Alabama's.
No, I totally agree. And again, I'm looking at the first team. And Georgia's got they've got a powerful offensive line. I think every one of their offensive linemen is in the first, second, or third SEC preseason team. Yeah. Let's also call a spade in the sense that Georgia is now getting the same benefit of the doubt Alabama has been getting for most of these years, where they're like, okay, when in doubt, just pick the Alabama guy. And now they're doing when in doubt, pick the Georgia guy. And again, this is not – I want to be clear that you and I aren't saying people should be respecting Georgia less or respecting Texas less. I think those teams deserve it. What really was the impetus of this conversation was last night when you and I were talking, and I don't want to spoil the what's coming with this, but you said that they're the 4 contenders. It'd be Bama, Texas, Ole Miss, and Georgia were the first 4 in that little video conference last night. And so each one of y'all was asked which team should not be in this foursome. You said Ole Miss, which I think makes plenty of sense, given the fact that Ole Miss has never been to the SEC title game.
Yeah,
okay?
never been. Yeah.
It's
been a while since they've beaten anybody as good as Alabama, Georgia, or Texas.
Correct. Okay, so they've never been there. And you said Ole Miss. Every other team said Alabama. I'm just like, hey, okay.
Respectfully, they weren't trashing Alabama. No one was saying Alabama's going to be 6-6. They all did it. They all did it respectfully. I was just a little surprised. They all did it respectfully. Everyone, especially Georgia, I think, Georgia's probably got some understandable PTSD issues with Alabama, and Texas and Ole Miss don't have that. Ole Miss has been beaten by Alabama so long, and Ole Miss has put it this way. Ole Miss has expected to beat Alabama very few times in the past couple of, few decades. Georgia has expected to beat Alabama several times and did not. And for that, they probably have a little PTSD over it. And I get that. Texas just doesn't have enough of a history with Alabama yet. And we split the last 2 with them. And, hey, I'll be honest. I mean, I think we'll probably do official prediction type shows next week so we can get on record and you guys can chime in and comments on YouTube or Twitter, wherever you like, about what y'all's official prediction is. But I'm probably going to pick Texas to win the SEC. I mean, so I'm not downing the competition or hyping Alabama higher than the norm. I think picking Alabama to finish second or third in the SEC and fifth overall, I think that's fair. I'm talking about the doubters out there that think Alabama's overrated at 5,
Jimmy,
that Alabama's not going to be a contender. I think that's crazy talk.
Here's my thing. Look, I feel like the AP and the coaches poll got it right. That's all I'm saying. I don't think we should be 1. I don't. I want to see more. I need to see a little more. But I think we've earned the right to be called number 5. I think we've earned the right to be said, okay, we don't think you're going to win the SEC, but we think you'll finish third in the SEC. And I'll tell you this right now, if we finish third in the SEC, we're going to the playoffs. So I think all that is very fair. I do feel like, though, when people say, yeah, I'm leaning more 9-3 than 10-2, I'm like, hey, haven't we earned a little more respect than that? That's all I'm saying. But Jimmy, we want to talk about the surprises of fall camp because they've been there and you have some, and we're going to discuss them. Also, want to remind everybody, go check out Locked On College Football. I know you think I say it a lot, but it's worth it. Spence does a great job. It's part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So surprises in fall camp so far, Jimmy. To me, I feel like it's just the wide receiver group on the whole. I feel like Ryan Williams has come in and done what I thought Ryan Williams would do, and Caleb Odom has come in and been impressive. And really at the other end of the spectrum, you know, he's taller, he's a big target. He's not going to. I think Ryan's the better receiver, but Caleb's pretty awesome. Kendrick Law has certainly turned a lot of eyes and a lot of heads. I don't know why you'd turn eyes. I turn heads.
Wow, that's unfaithful.
By the way, shout out to Michael Southern, who does a lot of Alabama basketball stuff. He does a great job. He filled me in yesterday and said the old soup to nuts saying is something when, you know, back in olden times, you would have soup to begin your meal and some kind of nuts to end your meal for dessert. And I'm like, okay.
Oh, my God.
But that was really old.
That's a terrible existence. That's why I don't like when people say the good old days.
That's why people used to have vomitoriums. You know, they used to have these vomitoriums that.
These are the best times to live, thanks to technology. These are the best times to live.
Oh, I know.
Used to keel over dead from a cold.
Listen, I had a blizzard from Dairy Queen last night, and I thought about his sending me that, and I was like, thank God I'm not eating peanuts for dessert.
Yeah, so they'll be saying soup to blizzard in 100 years, and people will be going, man, those things were good.
Okay, so who's your surprise of the camp so far?
I have about 4 or 5, and I haven't really put them in an order. I think they're difficult to put in order, but I'll throw them out. Wilcom Formby, I think I'm not surprised that Wilcom Formby is beating out Elijah Pritchett for right tackle. I'm not surprised, but it appears just from what we've seen that it hasn't really been close. I think Formby is going to be a dude in every sense of the word. And he's helped stabilize that offensive line. So I think Formby is a story of fall camp. Luke's right about receiver. I would also throw in, I'm going to say Ryan Williams. Again, not a surprise, because who would ever be surprised that Ryan did something great? No one should ever be surprised. But I'm a little surprised that Ryan is making the quick impact, the fact that he might be one of this offense's best players right out of the gate. And that may be the case. But another receiver I want to talk about I think it's a surprise to some, not so much to us, but Cole Adams is really good. And people that are more casuals, to use Josh Pate's term of the program, might be surprised that Cole Adams is easily among our best 6. But that is a fact. He's easily among the best 6 and is probably going to get some starts as a redshirt freshman. That's how good Cole Adams is. So that's another guy I would say. How about this one? I'm not saying he's going to play a significant role yet. Let's see. But I think Quay Rousseau has been a story too, because he redshirted last year, didn't play a snap. I think he's pushing Quandarius Robinson and Keanu Coote. Those two are ahead, they're going to get the first shot. But my advice to those guys is, hey, if you get on the field, you need to do something because Quay Russaw is coming for your jobs. So you've got to produce because they'll take a look at that redshirt freshman there in Quay Russaw. So to me, Quay Russaw is a story. Just real impressed with him every time I see him. One final position I'll get to is corner. That's been a real subject of a real battle that's going to be ongoing. One thing I may have been wrong about all summer, I thought the starting corners emerging from fall camp would be Damani Jackson at one side and Deshaun Jones on the other side. I'm not sure Deshaun has beaten out not one, but two freshmen. Zabian Brown and Jalen Mbakwe have had big-time fall camps. Mo Linguist interviewed him yesterday. I take that 9-minute interview that's out there on BOL. So I listened to Mo Linguist yesterday for 9 minutes. Because if you ask him 2 questions, he's going to talk for 9 minutes, which is great.
Well, his name is Linguist.
he should exactly. But he loves those freshman corners. And he likes Deshaun, too. He even said, I like Deshaun Jones. But, man, he lights up talking about both Zabian and Bach. They're big stories, and I think it's going to be an ongoing competition that extends into the season as to who ends up being that corner opposite Damani. But shout out to Damani for holding on to his spot. While there's so much competition, to my knowledge, I haven't seen anything that indicates they're like, hey, Zabian and Mbakwe are so good. Let's put one of them on the other side. Nobody's talked about that. I think Damani has really held on to his corner well. So to me, those are kind of the biggest stories of a fall camp so far. Today will be day 12. We're recording this on Wednesday. Today is day 12. There are 20 fall camp practices before they totally switch the next day to game prep for Western Kentucky.
Shout out to people who were able to stay on the road while Jimmy coughed right into their ear.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I hope y'all enjoy it.
Okay, really quickly, Bama Online came out with an article, and we're not going to go through the whole thing, but I did, since I put it in what we're doing today, I'm going to say it. It said Alabama freshmen who can become household names this fall. And I'm just going to read off who they have. You tell me the one Bone? You think will be.
Did Bone right there?
Let's see. It was Bone.
Cole Adams. Bone doesn't normally do the team stuff, so I was eager to see it. I saw it put up right when we started recording the show.
All right, we're going to leave Zabian Brown, Ryan Williams, and some of the big boys out. Cole Adams, Richard Young, Keon Keeley, Red Morgan. This includes redshirt freshman, by the way. Jalen Mbakwe, and Caleb Odom, Zay Mincy, and Olis Alenin. Tell me which one of those you think is the most householdy name by the end of the year.
By the end of the year of that group, I want to say Cole Adams.
I was going to say, dang it, I'm going to go Cole Adams.
I want to go Cole Adams. I don't think Olas is a 2.
No, I want to go. I don't
know
that Keeley. I'm going to go Cole Keeley's
good. I think Odom's good, and I don't like coming across as being a Caleb Odom doubter because that's not what I intend by any. I'm just saying that I think 6 receivers have separated themselves from the rest based on what I've seen at practice. Kobe Prentice, Kendrick Law, Jeremy Bernard, Ryan Williams, Cole Adams, and Emmanuel Henderson. I think those are your first 6. For Caleb Odom to make an impact, to me, he's the 7th guy, and I'm not sure how much play the 7th guy gets, and we're also ignoring Jaron Hamilton, who's also a bit of a thing. So I just wonder about all the people that are kind of in front of Caleb Odom.
Yeah. And taking balls away from everybody. So it's hard to pick a wide receiver when you have so many dudes that may make a play and not get to make a lot of plays.
Jalen Milroe, I'm predicting, is going to throw 34 times a game. And for those that doesn't sound like many, keep in mind he only threw it 23 times a game last year.
No, that's a lot.
If Jalen Milroe throws it 34 times a game, some of those throws are going to go to the tight end group, which will be featured in the pass game. And some of those throws are going to go to the backs because that's a great play. It's a dangerous play, and Justice and Jam can catch the ball. So if you're taking away 8 of those 34 or 9 of those 34 and giving them to backs and tight ends, then that leaves 24, 25 targets to wide receivers. Jalen's not going to complete 100%. Let's say he completes 70%, which is
says you.
Let's say he completes 70%, which is fantastic. That's about 14 balls.
All right.
I don't know if you want to be the seventh receiver when that wide receiver room's catching 14 balls collectively.
Well, that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.